Good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning, everyone.
It is actually Monday today. So here we are with Monday with Jesus, although of course we don't know what day of the week it's going to be when you watch us. But it is Monday after at our church, we had a very special service called Second Chance worship service. Because this is, in case you didn't know, April is Second Chance month officially, which has to do with raising the consciousness of all the issues that returning citizens face, all the obstacles they face, and the desperate need for criminal justice reform in our country, all of which I got involved with because, among other things, of biblical storytelling. So, and this week, today begins National Reentry Week also. So you may see some events going on around those things. But as for us right now, we are going to spend a little bit of time with Jesus in the Gospel of John in chapter 15. So Tom will tell you the story and then we'll have some questions and answers about it.
So this is Jesus' last conversation with his disciples. And so he is thinking about their future. So Jesus said, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch of mine, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he cuts it off. But every branch in me that bears fruit, he prunes it clean so that it might bear more fruit. You have already been pruned clean through the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit unless it abides in the vine, so also you cannot bear fruit unless you abide in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Those who abide in me, and I in them, they are the ones who bear much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me, and I in them, is like a branch that is cut off and thrown away. Those branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. But if you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. For in this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so become my disciples.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that's great. So Jesus is once again using an agricultural metaphor, this time about vines and branches. And he says, I am the true vine. Well, so if Jesus is the true vine, who would be a false vine?
I think that this is the true vine metaphor is a comment on the most prevalent allegory, one of the most striking and memorable and widely remembered motifs from the prophets, which is in Isaiah. And I've got it here somewhere. It's the parable of the true vineyard, and the parable of I planted a vineyard, my beloved planted a vineyard and looked for grapes, but it brought up wild grapes. And that this is a commentary then on that metaphor of the relationship between the nation and the people. And that Jesus is saying here, I am the true vine. I am the one who will be at the source of life for the nation, for each of you as my disciples.
So Jesus is referencing Isaiah. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, yes. I think
Wow.
whenever he uses the metaphor of the vine and the branches and the vineyard and all that, that what his listeners would be thinking of is the parable of the vineyard from Isaiah. Yeah, I think so.
Wow. So this is just another instance of how well Jesus knew his scriptural tradition, which unless we know our scriptural tradition, we wouldn't be aware of that. I didn't look to see what are the other scriptures in the lectionary, this coming Sunday that this is. I don't know, did you look? Did they put that Isaiah passage in the lectionary?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would just suggest to everybody who's listening, that would be a really good pairing of scriptures if you're going to use this John 10, to use that Isaiah. Where do you recall where it is in Isaiah?
It's Isaiah 6, I think.
Someplace in Isaiah 6. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Okay.
It's either 5 or 6.
All right. So then after he mentioned, he says that he's a true vine, which is how this starts, just like sort of, I am the good shepherd. Here he starts, I am the true vine.
Yeah, and another dimension of this is that John assumes, I think, that his listeners will know the scriptures well enough that they will pick up this allusion to the vineyard parable in Isaiah.
Right, sure. He then talks about pruning clean. What does that mean, to prune it clean?
Well,
clean is kind of the always important word. You hear about clean and unclean spirits.
purity, right.
How make me clean? So here it's being used again with regard to vines, branches.
Yep. Well, if you've ever done pruning of roses or grapes or something, you want a clean cut. So there's and the word that is translated here, pruned and clean, is the Greek word kathairo, which means both pruning and clean. So the NRSV translates it as every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it to make it bear more fruit. You've already been cleansed by the word. Well, then the whole metaphor is lost, this ambiguity of pruned and clean. So I think both, this is a Boomershine translation, and pruned it clean. And I think that it needs both words rather than one in one sentence and the other in the next, because one doesn't make the connection then. This is about being pruned clean, that is, of being cleansed by being pruned. Some things cut off so that they can bear more.
You mentioned roses.
Agriculture.
That's really helpful, because we actually have some roses, and I didn't know much about them. So I remember asking a friend of mine, I know you're supposed to prune them, but I don't know what that means exactly. And she said, well, you want to cut out all the dead wood, all the things that have sort of the dead branches, and clean them out. It's kind of literally a cleaning out process. And so this year, just a month or so ago, I did that, and I cut them back because they got really straggly. Well, then they do come back. I mean, that's already happening. They're just so much fuller and they look healthier already. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess that works with grapevines as well.
Right.
Yeah,
it does.
Okay,
Yep.
now let's move on to another word that's used a whole lot in this passage, the word abide.
Yes.
What is that? What's that about? What does that mean? Kind of sounds like getting something inside. Oh, maybe that's he's using that language.
Right. Well, the Greek word is most normally translated remain. So it's the Greek word is meno, and so it means to stay. It means to remain, to stay in place, to remain. It also implies steadiness and maintaining connection and relationship. So, so this the use of this word, Jesus does a lot, and it's a distinctive thing in this discourse from the Gospel of John. So it is it's a key word for the relationship between Jesus and the disciples, then and now, of remaining, of staying, of abiding. So it's all about this, interconnection of relationship.
Right, and it's not just like relation. He talks about his words abiding, which makes me think a little bit. And we talk about not just memorizing scripture, but internalizing it so it becomes a part of you.
Right.
So that makes the sense of having Jesus's words abide in us might be another way to think about that.
Yes, it is. And what has happened is that we've lost the sense of connection in the interiorization of the scriptures, in the interiorization of Jesus' words. And what that's about is not the reduplication of what is printed, but it's about the interiorization. It's about the relationship to his words. It's about having them by heart and abiding in those words, keeping them. And that is at the core of our relationship now with Jesus. That's our most direct connection, is his words.
Right.
And so this admonition, this recommendation to have my words abide, stay in you, is an extension of the metaphor of the vine and the branches to our relationship with the scriptures and with Jesus' words.
What about these branches that are cut off, thrown away, burned? I mean, you do have images of people being tossed into hell where they're,
right,
burned eternally. But is that what Jesus is saying here, or is there something else? Some other way to?
Well, I think it is, it's shocking. Just as the parable of the vineyard in Isaiah is that the beloved destroys the vineyard and has that it will be torn down and the vat thrown away. So that metaphor is extended to now what happens if the words do not abide, if they do not stay. Well, it is that relationship. And it is actually descriptive of what happens. In the absence of that, the vitality of relationship and the energy in the community withers away. It gets lost. And so this is a description of what happens in relationships that are not maintained and where there is not attention and presence in that relationship. It's actually pretty factual.
Yeah. Huh. How do we bear much fruit as disciples?
Well, a lot of what Jesus talks about in relation to that is, on the one hand, loving, caring, and of actions then that express that. And he models that in the gospel of healing the man born blind. So it is a description of caring and of acting then out of that relationship of love that is present between Jesus and his followers. So that's present at any time, and bearing fruit is living out of that relationship.
So is there some kind of a discipleship formation program implicit in this passage that, we might build on this to create?
Well, I'm an advocate of the interiorization of Jesus' words as a program for discipleship formation. And it hasn't been widely adopted by any means. People have now have some kind of aversion to this, but I think that the process, the spiritual formation, is about getting in touch with the dynamics of the Spirit. And at the core of that, for the followers of Jesus, is establishing that relationship and maintaining it. And the interiorization of Jesus' words is the clearest and most available. And so I would recommend that as part of this weekly thing, that you learn and interiorize these stories, as I do in preparation for this, which is obviously imperfect. My goal isn't reduplication of the text. It is rather speaking and learning and interiorizing these words.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Okay, well, thank you, Tom, for sharing your reflections on this passage and also telling it for us. And we hope everyone has a really good week, wonderful week.
Well, and I want
to story.
Right, and I want to connect this with what you were saying at the beginning.
Okay.
I think that that for returning citizens, for the members of the community, that first of all, to remember Jesus' words when you visited me in prison. You did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters.
Right.
And that the expression of the inclusion of those who have committed, in many instances, there are some who are innocent of the crimes for which they're imprisoned, but the majority, acknowledge that they committed a crime. But this is about restoration. And Jesus is always talking about the restoration of those who have been lost. So the parables of the lost sheep, of the coin that was lost, of the lost son. This is a motif in Jesus' teaching.
Right.
And so it is reflected in many places in Jesus' teaching, and has then created this energy to reach out, to include, to make it possible for people to return and become an integral part of society again.
Right. And a good example of that, yesterday we had 3 restored citizens. and two of them told scripture by heart. So one of them told this wonderful story of the cleansing of, casting out an unclean spirit from a man from Mark 1, and the other one told Paul the put on the whole armor of God passage, both of which were powerful. So yeah, I think you're right. I think learning Jesus's stories and words, and Paul's as well, internalizing those is a wonderful way of both of being formed. Well, whoever you are, but I think it's helped them to return to the community and as restored citizens after a period of time. Yeah. So God bless you all. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.